Howdy do, horror fans, and welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Scary. I'm John, your host, and today we're going to be looking at the 1980s horror slasher film Christmas Evil. If you haven't seen this film, I would suggest you do so, because if I had to say where this film falls in, I would say it falls into the good category of horror films. This film begins simply and innocently enough with two young boys watching on the stairs as their father, dressed as Santa Claus, comes and brings them presents and eats the treats that he's given.
I told you he'd be happy we remembered him.
But our story doesn't end there, as we see Harry, the eldest child, wake back up, go down the stairs to have one final peek at Santa Claus, only to see old Saint Nick having his way with Harry's mother, kissing her legs and, well, I think if you watch the film, you'll know what they're implying he's doing to her. This new information is quite disturbing for Harry, as it could be for many children. So he runs upstairs, goes into the attic, finds a snow globe, and smashes it, cutting his hands. Story then goes on to present day, 33 years later, where we see Harry utterly obsessed with Santa Claus, utterly obsessed with Christmas. Everything in his house seems to be either a Santa decoration or something that's a homage to Christmas. We also find that he has a very creepy tendency to monitor all the children in the neighborhood.
Scotty Goodrich. Good boy, Scotty.
By recording what they do, the good deeds they do, and the bad deeds that they perform. We also see Harry in his everyday life working in a toy factory as a low-level manager. And we also witness that Harry is not liked by the majority of his fellow co-workers.
Hey, that looks great. Let me have a bite, will you, Harry?
In here, Frank.
And right from the beginning, kind of pushed around and roped into working another colleague's shift, while the colleague lies to him saying that he's going to spend time with his family.
What do you want?
We're gonna do each other a favor, Harry.
What do you mean?
I couldn't get anyone else to take my shift. And I remembered how much you said you missed the line. Well, you can go back on for one night for me.
Only for Harry to find out later that this colleague is at the bar with his friends. As the story progresses, we continue to see Harry growing really obsessed with the idea of being Santa Claus. But the real action begins when we see Harry attending his company's Christmas party on what I assume is Christmas Eve.
Santa Claus!
There we see him talking with colleagues he clearly dislikes.
He's telling everyone you had a great time working your shift for him.
The other thing we see too is a television in the corner of the room that discusses this charity project that the toy factory is doing this year.
The more toys we make, the more we can give. So keep production up.
The project is supposed to donate toys to the local children's mental hospital.
Despair, pain, and anguish are words which do not do justice to the suffering going on at the Willowy Springs State Hospital.
When we meet the executive that came up with the charity drive, we find out that he kind of slapped the whole thing together, not knowing how many children are actually in the hospital.
Campaign is his first contribution to the company.
Are there enough toys for all the children in the hospital?
I don't have the slightest idea how many children are in that hospital, Harry.
Incredibly irritated and annoyed, Harry leaves the Christmas party and goes back to his own house where he puts on his Santa outfit. And the moment he puts on his beard, he turns into Santa. And this is when a bit of the madness really begins. We see Harry leaving bags of dirt for kids like Moss Garcia, who he considers to be on his naughty list, while sneaking into other people's homes and leaving Christmas gifts for the kids he considers to be on his nice list. Harry then has an unfortunate run-in with people from his company, leaving a Christmas service.
And I see you've given up your reindeer for more modern wheels.
And kind of mocking him and jeering at this fake Santa Claus. And at this point, Harry loses it completely and attacks these individuals, killing some of them. From this point on, Harry is kind of on the lam. The news has reported on him and what he's done. There's kind of a funny point where they bring in a lot of fake Santas for a lineup to see if any of the witnesses recognize them.
All right, next, please. Come on, step forward.
But at this point as well, we see the real true conflict within Harry. We see him genuinely trying to be this Santa Claus character because he's drawn into another Christmas party and treated quite well.
Someone get the manager!
And we see a point where he talks to the children that are at this party, and there's something heartwarming about the way he puts on this persona of himself. He can get out of his shell, of the hairy shell, and this awkward individual, and be this Santa Claus.
But now, I want you to remember to stay good boys and girls. Respect your mothers and fathers, and do what they tell you.
But of course, he doesn't leave it on a purely heartwarming note. He also mentions to these children about what he'll do if they're naughty.
But if you're bad boys and girls, your name goes in the bad boys and girls book. And I'll bring you something horrible.
After he leaves the Christmas party, he's still on the run, and at this point we know he's very nervous, he's uncomfortable, because he's still aware and knows that the police are after him. One of the most interesting and conflicting scenes is there's town people who they've obviously heard the news reports that there's a killer Santa on the loose, yet they bump into him with their families as they're walking. There's a type of confrontation where one of the fathers pulls out a knife and tells the Santa to get away.
For you.
Don't! It's gonna hurt our kids.
But Harry, being this Santa Claus still with this giving heart, starts to bring out Christmas gifts for the kids, and the kids gather around him and kind of create a protective barrier.
I said get away from him or I'll rip your guts out.
At the end of the film, we see Harry in a final confrontation, which is with his own brother, discussing the things and the reasons why Harry's the way he is.
You were right, Phil. I'm a failure.
What have you done?
There's a moment of debate about what actually happened in those moments, what the true story is. So before I go any further, if you do not want any spoilers on the film, perhaps you should click out and go watch the film now. But otherwise, there will be some spoilers in just a minute. So let's get on to the good part of the film. If I had to say which one this film is, a good film, a bad film, or a scary one, I would definitely say that this one's a good one. So what do I think are the good aspects of the film? I think that obviously following around this Harry character, seeing a slasher film that's not exactly a formula of a slasher film. It follows this very conflicted individual. It's not it's not your typical sort of, I just want revenge on everyone, I'm going to strike them down. So to me, that was one of the really good elements and something that they did well in this film.
I wanted all of my life to prove to you that you were wrong.
I also think too that the film itself it has some depth to it. It has a message to say there, and you don't always get that with horror films, and especially in slasher movies. There was some depth and there was something being said other than don't do drugs and don't have sex. You know, at some point we see Harry and he's stealing toys from the factory and going to give them to the children's mental hospital.
You'd better get some of the staff. I'll wait here. Can I ask who donated all this?
Some people who didn't realize how generous they could be.
You know, because he's saying, when he hears that his own company doesn't really know how many children are there, he gets worried for the kids, and he really absorbs this Santa Claus persona and goes about and gives all of these toys to them to make sure that there are more than enough.
Boys and girls, Merry Christmas, everyone! Merry Christmas, Santa Claus!
And for the bad of the film, there wasn't too much that I would consider bad about the film. I thought it was pretty well done for what it was. But if I do have to say that there was something bad, I would say that the tone of it kind of shifts and changes, and there are parts that feel a little bit out of place or clunky, even though I think that the whole story is good and it's as it should be. There are still some parts where I wouldn't say bogged down, like it was horribly boring, but it just didn't flow as seamlessly as I would want. Now, for the scary part, I'm going to be talking about some big spoilers here. So this really is your last warning. If you don't want any spoilers, I do suggest you go and watch the movie, because it's going to be time well spent. But otherwise, you have been warned. So to me, what I think is actually the most scary bit of it is that we don't really know at the end of the film what happens to Harry. We don't know if he was killed by his brother Phil when he's strangled. We don't know if his car flies off into a ditch and he crashes there and dies. And we also honestly don't know if this last scene where his van is kind of flying off like a sleigh, if for some reason he really was a genuine Santa. We're not given that information. It's left open-ended. And another thing that, a small little point, something that was just scary to me while watching the film, was at the beginning, I didn't know where this film was going to be going when I saw Harry spying on the children. That to me was the creepiest part, and I'm not saying I was going to quit the film, but I paused it for a second and I wondered, I was like, am I really in the mood for this kind of film? Thankfully the directors and the writers didn't go that direction of having him hurt any of the children, so I guess I can appreciate that, because for the kids, they're given maybe bags of dirt, and that's in line with what Santa would do. He would give kids coal, and that's something that I appreciated about the film. But when I first watched it, it was a bit unsettling, to say the least. So again, all in all, Christmas Evil is one of the better slasher horror films from the 80s, especially one of the ones that is a holiday theme. So if you haven't seen the film, again, I give it a good rating. I say that you should really take the time to watch it. If not now, wait until Christmas time, because I don't think you'll be disappointed, especially if you're a horror fan. Okay, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and please click the subscribe. If you're enjoying these videos, I'll continue to make more, and hopefully each one will give you some nugget of wisdom or something that you're looking for. All right, until then.